Well, Ronaldo has signed for Al Nassr on a 2-year deal. Joining me to discuss more on this is Omar Akatuba from Germany.
Let me quickly say Happy New Year in advance to you, to all your listeners, and to everyone listening to or watching us right now. I beg your pardon.
Same to you, Omar. Omar, Ronaldo has signed
Yes.
for Al Nassr. Leading up to the World Cup, a lot of talks came in after his interview with Piers Morgan. Did you see a possibility of him signing for any other bigger club in Europe, or you thought or already knew that he would go out of Europe?
First and foremost, let me congratulate Ronaldo for signing a mega deal to play in Saudi Arabia. For a player at 38, almost at the end of his career, it's not sort of a bad thing. The only problem is that this is a player who portrayed himself as a super player, one who portrayed himself as a player who would play at the very top for the rest of his career, and even said it in several interviews that was seen circulating online, where he said that he would retire at the top, not in Dubai, not in Qatar, and in places like Saudi Arabia. And here we are, this same player is going to Saudi Arabia. And this is a player regarded by some as the greatest player of all time. And then they push that agenda for so many years, albeit ridiculous, but they managed to push it for so many years. Now, this player is going to Saudi Arabia, and that is what a lot of people cannot understand, because you need to, a lot of people are trying to hold him to his own standard of being that player who will retire at the very top of football. Like I said, it is not a bad thing going to Saudi Arabia, because a lot of ordinary players, normal players do this. But it is incredible because one of the players regarded as one of the greatest of all time is going there. And that's the reason for the hysteria. Now, coming to your question, I didn't expect it. And I'm sure most Ronaldo fans also didn't expect it. It is very difficult for them right now because they are trying to understand the rationale behind such a ridiculous move. And then they're trying to make sense of it, because it's actually a very difficult time for a Ronaldo fan who would have wanted to see him continue to play in Europe, Champions League, and at the very top. But now they have to make do with their favorite player playing in the obscurity of Saudi Arabia. I'm not sure, anyone expected that. And if you look at that Piers Morgan interview, perhaps you would see that it's either he didn't know what Ronaldo was thinking about, or he was basically overexcited because he was interviewing a player he loves so much, and then couldn't fashion his questions appropriately, because that interview now makes him look very, very laughable.
I was talking about Ronaldo still. He's moved to Saudi Arabia. Does it change anything for him? Does it change the fact that, yes, he's still talked about as one of the greatest players of all time? And secondly, for Ronaldo, is it more of a beneficial thing for the player or for the club and the country itself?
I think the first question is, going to Saudi Arabia will not take anything away from his greatness as a footballer, but it certainly takes something away from the argument that he's one of the greatest players of all time. I know that there is no player regarded as one of the greatest of all time that went to Saudi Arabia. If I ask anyone now to mention 5 great players, let's even forget of all time, in this generation, you will hear names like Messi, you will even hear Ronaldo as number 2. For most people, you will hear Zidane, you will hear Ronaldinho, you will hear Cristiano Ronaldo of Brazil. I beg your pardon, Ronaldo de Lima of Brazil. None of these true greats went to places like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, or Dubai, because they wanted to, keep their great legacy and end at a very decent level. What Ronaldo has done takes something away from his position as one of the true greats of football. But definitely, it doesn't take anything away from his achievement. He's one of the biggest players in the world. You look at his achievements, both as a player and with clubs he played for. Of course, a great player. But talking about one of the true greats, this move suddenly, takes something away from all of that.
The other question about the benefits, the beneficial angle, Is it just for Saudi? Because definitely we've already seen a rise in the social media following of Al Nassr, and obviously we'll see a lot more viewing of matches in that league. Is it just for Ronaldo? Because Ronaldo is going to be getting £200 million yearly in a total package. Is it just for him, or is beneficial on both ends?
I think it goes both ways. It's a partnership that would benefit both parties. I think that the football in Saudi Arabia will benefit a lot. There's no doubt about that. Ronaldo is a superstar. Is perhaps, I mean, not even perhaps, is the most popular footballer in the world. I hope somebody does not misconstrue this for the greatest footballer. He's the most popular footballer in the world. And going to a place like Saudi Arabia, and just like Al Nassr tweeted, is going to inspire a generation, is going to help to develop football in the country, and is going to help, to drag eyeballs and buzz to football in Saudi Arabia. I think these are the benefits that the club and the country will get. And for Ronaldo, of course, nothing more than the money, because this is not going to add anything to his legacy. This is not going to add anything to his greatness. It's actually taking a lot away. So for him, he's sacrificing his legacy for so much money. And in return, for Saudi Arabia, they are getting a lot of buzz. There's so much talk about Saudi Arabia already. I'm sure if you Google Saudi Arabia right now, it's trending both on social media and everywhere. And that already is the huge benefit for this country. And of course, like you mentioned, there's already the social media benefit as the club's following on Instagram has skyrocketed. And that, I think, is the impact of signing a player like Ronaldo. But then again, I also think that they have not even signed Ronaldo purely for footballing reasons. I can tell you that Al Nassr may not even win the league. There is Igalo's club where Igalo is currently doing very well, scored 12 goals already in 13 games, the leading scorer in that league, bossing that league. And you know that this club are also in the Asian Champions League. That is the biggest competition in Asia. And this club is not participating there. So you can imagine that if signed Ronaldo, for me, more for things outside of football to boost the popularity of the league, to boost the image of the club, to help, like they said, inspire a generation. But what I would like to say is that things like this don't last. 200 million is ridiculous. It is out of this world, and they cannot sustain this. They signed Ahmed Musa at some point, and we know what happened at the end of the day. They had to agree to a mutual termination of his contract because somehow they couldn't even afford Ahmed Musa anymore. I wonder how they'll be able to sustain this kind of humongous salary for, anyways, 2 years. But let's see how that 2 years goes. But I think that things like this don't last. We've seen it happen many, many years ago, and we know how they all end up. The hysteria, the excitement will stay, but it lasts for a very short while. It's just like a relationship. When you find a new girlfriend, it's always very exciting and interesting. But 6 months down the line, everything becomes normal. I think that will be the case in this situation as well.
About that, Saudi, the club has already said that he is going to be an ambassador as well. He's going to serve as an ambassador for Saudi. I think it might just be, like you said, not just about football, but probably the social angle and the political angle of it. But for Ronaldo, who is still looking to play the Euros, the level of competition in the Saudi Arabian League is a lot different from what you see in Europe. And the Euros is about 2 years away from now. Is there a possibility that he's
actually
still
next year?
Yeah, he's still up to par with the competition we witnessed at the World Cup and also at the previous Euros?
I mean, that's a very good question. To be very honest, the just concluded World Cup showed to us how Ronaldo has reached a point where he cannot change games any longer. He's already been benched by the Portuguese national team. That already confirms to us how less he can influence games these days. And now going to Saudi Arabia does not show that he wants to continue to compete and then come back to fight for his place in the national team. Going to Saudi Arabia somehow is accepting the fact that he's no longer that player he used to be, or is no longer that player he wants us to think that he is. I mean, he went to Manchester United accepting a pay cut because he wanted to still prove, like he's always said, at the very top, that he can still do it. And to be fair on him, he did quite well in his first season at United, but down the line, things started to, to diminish. And we started to see him lose his place in the club slowly, which led to that very ill, advised interview that completely crumbled his relationship with the club. So a move to Al Nassr is not a good move for a player who needs to fight for his place in the national team, who still wants to represent his country, especially on a final stage at the Euros, which is just a year, from now. It's not a good move from a footballing perspective. But like I said at the very beginning, from an economic standpoint, a fantastic move. Anything other than that is absolutely ridiculous, ill-advised, and very laughable, especially for a great as Ronaldo. Get the context. For a great as Ronaldo, a lot of persons might misunderstand me. Any other player can go to Saudi Arabia, but not the one regarded as one of the greatest and the rival to Lionel Messi, who is a true great player and one of the and perhaps the greatest in the history of football.
Okay, thank you so much, Omar, for throwing light or shedding light on this issue. It's a pleasure having you on Arise News. Thank you.